We're going to watch this cartoon. We're going to watch it again because I forgot to record this.
We take scrutinizing freshness to a whole new level.
No, that video is a little old. I think it said by 2011, didn't it? So it's over 10, 11, 12 years old. I don't remember when I got it. So it's a little old. Anybody have any idea what the Earth's population is as of right now, 2021? Like 7.8, 7.9 billion. So they said 2011 it was going to be 7 billion. we know in 2021, let's just make it 8 billion, it's real close, it's getting closer all the time. What they say, in 1930, it was like 3 billion, is that right? I think what the video said. And you seen that graph, what was happening on that graph? It was going up, but then what all of a sudden happened? It started shooting up, didn't it? Did it go back down?
It looked like it slowed down to the smallest.
Did it slow down a little bit up top? Let's look at this and let's see. Let's say 1930 to 2010. What's that, 80 years? 80 years. We grew by about 4 billion. We divide each of those by 8. Divide this by 8, we get 10, so we can set it up just to figure out things in 10 years increments. What if we divide 4 by 8? What do we come up with? So back then we were growing by about how many people per 10 years? Half a billion. We know we're almost 8 billion right now. How much are we growing by every 10 years? About a billion. Is there any way that we could actually sustain this? Is it going to work out for us or the earth or anything? No, because at some point, it's just going to keep going up and up and up and up, and we can't keep growing that way. What happened, and this is for all of you conspiracy theorists, this will lead into that conversation. Is that you, Lily?
I don't know.
How come back here during that time it wasn't growing as much? Maybe, I don't know.
And less disease nowadays.
People live longer now.
That's the whole thing. How come people live longer now?
Less healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare is a lot better, less disease. Going back, I had somebody the other day tell me that the COVID is because our governments around the world, the big wigs around the world, the governments are figuring out, hey, we can't keep going this way. Back here, like back in 1900, anybody know any of the diseases back in 1900 or sometime around there? Polio, smallpox, it killed off a whole bunch of people in the world.
Oh, there's many places.
Right, on back through there, right? All kinds that killed off people. We haven't had any of those for like 100 years. So that's what this person told me the other day, that they thought the government released COVID, trying to make it so that, who knows, trying to level us out a little bit because we're growing too quick. Anything else you seen on the video that surprised you?
The mega cities.
Three. Yeah, there was 3 and now there's 21. What has to happen? You start talking about statistics like that. What has to happen that there's 21 mega cities now? Is it really a mega city anymore? It's just a regular city, just about, right?
It's
So,
just a big city.
so what needs to happen? How we categorize all of them probably needs to change, right? Like it said, 70% of us will live in mega cities. Probably not, because we're not going to consider it
Then our regular cities are micro cities.
right or something else, and there is no rural area anymore. Like, I don't know what they consider a city, I know what they consider a mega city because they told us on there. But what's a city? Well, if they consider, they're probably going to have to make what they consider a city larger, what they consider a mega city larger, so it more fits everything. Anything else surprise you?
Stand shoulder to shoulder in Los Angeles.
So-
Did you not if we like condense like all of our like and this is gross, but if we condense like all of our flesh and bones and like all into big one blob, they can fit into the park in New York, Central Park, yeah. We could all fit in Central Park. I have a big giant one. Isn't that big?
So it's not the fact that there's too many of us, or not enough space, just not enough resources, everything else. One that surprised me, 38% of the world, that's over a third of all the people in the world, don't have normal sanitation set up. In other words, bathrooms and stuff like that. That would, I don't know, that'd be awful different, right? Sleep in. All right, what you need to do, get out something to write with. Again, you're going to write notes in here. This is up to you. As we go through this, and I'll tell you, hey, this is probably pretty important. Hey, this isn't so important. Don't write this down. Sometimes I'll say that. You've got to know these are your notes. I'm never, ever going to look at them again. All right, keep them in some kind of binder, something that's easiest for you. The only bad thing I'll say about a spiral, what happens as the year goes along in a spiral? Things start to tear out and everything, and you run out of space in it. So that's up to you. Get what you want. Know that a lot of times, again, I said this last time on the test, I will allow you to use them on the test because I don't expect that you'll have all these formulas and everything that we'll cover memorized. All of your seniors, and if you do go on to higher education past this, you got to know you're not going to sit in some class in college and you'll be sitting there and the professor's going over stuff and you're writing down, and then you're going to go like this and raise your hand and say, could you slow down? And number one, the professors, depending on what kind of professor you got, they're either going to laugh at you. That'll be one of their. The other thing is something that I can't do here in class, because they're probably going to say some words to you that shouldn't be said to a normal human being. All right? Because it's not like here in high school where Mr. Ebersole's got to keep on his kid gloves and you can't tell Alex to sit and shut his effing mouth or something like that. All right? They will. Okay? I was sitting in class and we were in a lecture hall like this one over here, only it was a little bigger. It's only like 15 people in the whole class. Lecture hall holds a couple hundred. About 13 of us are sitting down the first 5 rows or so. 2 football players for the college I went to sitting in the very top rows. And they're sitting up there talking. Professor teaching something. This is a history class or something silly. He's teaching. And it's like the first day, he said, fellas, you guys need to shut the F up. They looked at him real funny, like, you can't talk to us that way. And he went on teaching. They went on talking. Next thing, he got on the phone, called campus security, said, get their little A's out of my class right now. Threw them out. Somebody asked the professor a few days later, well, when you threw them out, are they going to get their money back? He said, no. That's their fault. That's their stupidity. They should have come in here and done what they need to do. My whole point was, you write down what you need to write down. All right? Make sure that you can understand it. Make sure that it's helpful to you. Introduction to statistics. This is just an overview. Some of this stuff's pretty quick. This is what we're going to go over. We're going to give a definition of statistics, distinguish between a population and a sample. When we get to that, that's going to be pretty important. Distinguish between a parameter and a statistic, and distinguish between those two kinds of statistics, descriptive and inferential. Again, a lot of this you probably won't want to write down. You guys are smart enough, you'll figure it out. Braden, if I don't get out of the way, just holler at me and say, hey, Ebersole, you're in the way, all right? Because I forget sometimes. Data. Data consists of information coming from observation. And again, as you write stuff down, bad habit, and I told you probably when I had you in geometry class, bad habit is writing down everything that I write word for word. Write it down so it makes sense to you. Your notes, you're going to use them, not me. When you get to this second one, statistics, notice there's an S on the end. The word statistic and the word statistics, two completely different things. Statistics is the whole class. The one with the S is the whole class. The science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data in order to make some kind of decisions, to draw conclusions about something. So you get all this information and then you make decisions from that information. The last two down there, it's very important all year long that you can tell the difference between a population and a sample. A population is a collection of all the outcomes of the entire group. The bad thing with populations and samples, here shortly when you walk through the door, we're going to do a survey. People doing that survey will be all of you. I could consider that my population. So you guys would be my population. You're not going to be my population if I decide I want something else. So you got to, it's just, sometimes it's sort of hard to distinguish between a population and a subset of that population or a sample. You guys are the population of the prop stats class here at National Trail. But you're a sample or a subset of the entire student body of National Trail. Or you're a subset of the senior class at National Trail. Or you're a subset of students in Preble County. So you could be considered a sample. You could also be considered a population. Depends on how we're dealing with it. So when you're figuring out, hey, is this a population or is this a sample, you really got to think it through and figure out, who all you're looking at, and if you're splitting off just part of them as a sample, or if you're dealing with the entire population. 90% of the time, we'll be dealing with samples, not populations. If I wanted to survey all the National Trail students, how come I might use a sample instead of a population? If I want to ask everybody, everybody at National Trail, that's, National Trail's our population. I want to ask them all how much they weigh. I don't know, just to get a number for everybody. How much they weigh. Why might I use a sample and not use the entire population?
To get the average without meeting everybody.
Maybe. Fewer numbers to deal with, in other words. What would be the problem with doing a population?
People might be less than 100. More people might be like 150 over 200. I don't know.
There's a lot more flyers.
Let's say everybody's gonna. Eversole's not gonna lie that he's fat.
I mean, I don't know, doing the population would be more accurate, though.
So why would we ever do a sample then? Why do a sample if population's always gonna be more accurate? Faster? That's a good point. A couple years ago, you guys probably don't even remember it because you don't pay any attention to it. A couple years ago, the U.S. tried to do their census again, right? They do it like every 20 years or whatever. Probably your parents are probably doing this in the house when somebody's knocking on the door saying, shh. I don't even think they walk around anymore. It used to be that they'd go around to each house and ask the questions when they couldn't get a hold of it. Now they just try to call you on the phone. When they call you on the phone, what's your parents do? Don't answer that. Don't answer that. It's a stupid census, people. Alright? So when they did that census, and the information, I just seen some of the information was out the other day. When they did that census, did they get everybody? Is it even feasible that there's a chance that they could ever get everybody in the United States? So when we do a population, sort of hard to get everybody. It's even here, if we just did the population national trail, is there ever a day when everybody's here all at once? Not usually. I mean, there's usually at least 15 or 20 people on the absence sheet when I get it each day. So you'd have to go around and try to get those people and so on and so on. And maybe by the time I get those people and get their weight, maybe Ebersole's gained about 10 pounds and now he's got to redo his and now our numbers are off anyway. The whole point is population's very, very hard to get all of them. So a lot of times we'll use samples. But again, going back to you guys, if I just want to use the population as the prob stats students at National Trail, you guys are it. You're the entire population. But then if I wanted to stick you in as a sample of National Trail students, then it's a little different. But you got to be able to tell the difference between a population and a sample. So population, all the people, or all the whatever you're dealing with. A sample is a subset of that population. I'm going to skip over this, it's the same stuff. So data consists of information, counts on people who eat 3 daily servings of whole grains have been shown to reduce the risk of stroke by 37%. That's our data in that. Saying you reduce stroke by 37%, that's a piece of data. Statistics, again, that's the entire science, the whole thing of it. A population, all those people there could be our population. Maybe we pick those 3 right there. That's our subset, that's our sample. In a recent survey of 250 college students at Union College, 250 colleges, at Union College, we're asked if they smoke cigarettes regularly. Trinity, don't laugh at me because I can't read, all right? Because it'll happen all year long when I'm trying to read these, so I have to stop and say, what? Because it doesn't make sense. We're asked if they smoke cigarettes regularly. 35 of the students said yes. Identify the population and the sample. What's the population that we're dealing with here? I don't know. What is it?
I think it's Union College. The sample's 200.
So the sample, if I write sample down here, you're saying 250 is the sample?
Yeah, because that's,
And then where's the population?
we're not sure. But it's just Union College.
Union College students?
Yeah.
So Union College students, that's our entire population. And then the 250 students that actually answered or whatever is our sample. And then 35, what's 35?
That's our data.
That's a piece of data. All right, so that's a piece of data. So the population, Union College students, sample 250. What if they said, what if they just said, what if they got rid of this? What's your population now? I thought I heard it. It'd be all college students then. All right, so we would know if, college students, who knows, in the United States, all around the world, whatever, but it'd be all college students. So we got all the students at Union College, that was our population. This subset right here is those 250 who actually answered it. In a recent survey of 708 adults in the United States, were asked if they think global warming is a problem that requires immediate government action. 939 of the adults said yes. Identify the population in the sample. What's the population this time? All adults in the U.S. and what's the sample? Those ones who actually answered. So, all U.S. adults is your population. Sample is just that blue part there, people who actually answered the survey. The sample's a subset. What's the problem with something like this? If I stood out here in the hallway and I passed out surveys to ask everybody this question, a whole bunch of people aren't going to fill it out, right? Who are the people that are going to fill it out? So I know I used to teach at another school, and one of the math teachers that was there, one of the other math teachers, I would go over to his room to talk to him and stuff, just to ask him questions or something. He'd be on his phone. It'd be during playing time or during lunch or whatever. He'd be on his phone. He'd be talking to his congressman or his representative in Columbus or in Washington D.C. or someplace. And then after a while, I didn't see him on his phone for a while, and I asked him, "Why are you not calling them anymore?" Number one, I thought it was funny that he was calling them all the time, bothering them. "Oh, you need to be doing this," and he was one of those kind of guys that wanted to make sure everybody knew where he stood. And come to find out that they blocked his calls. They wouldn't take his calls anymore at Columbus or anywhere that he was trying to call, so they quit taking his calls. But those are the people who are going to actually answer this. So if I was to ask all you guys, and none of you care about global warming, am I really going to get a whole lot of good responses? Probably not. Bad thing is, if I ask everybody, those people who really do care about global warming and think it's a real problem, and think that the Earth's going to blow up here in the next, that we're sitting here in all this heat national trail because of global warming, and the Earth's going to burn up in the next 5 years or something. those are the people you're going to get the responses from. Well, is that going to give us a good idea of what's actually going on with all the people in the world? Not always. It's going to be their voice, and so some of us, like me, that think, I don't care. Sometimes I probably need to say something and say, hey, you're full of crap. There's no proof that the Earth's warming up this quick and the poles are going to melt and drown us all, and we better learn to start swimming and growing webs on our feet because we're going to be underwater pretty soon. But that goes back to what we have as far as COVID right now. With COVID, who are the people that you hear the most from about COVID?
Democrats.
People that are on one side or the other. You don't hear from people like Ebersole who, I don't care if I wear a mask or not. It's no reason, and I didn't tell you guys this the other day, the only reason I'm wearing a mask, because last year I expected my students to wear a mask because I wasn't vaccinated yet. And I was in the group that was getting sick and everything, fat, out of shape, old. So I was in the group that was maybe in trouble. Well, now the numbers are showing that who are the people getting sick more now? The kids. And the people that are making them sick are the people like me who got the vaccination and are carrying this other form of the disease around and coughing all over all of you and giving it to you. So I figure, all right, I made you guys wear a mask last year. It's not going to hurt for me to wear a mask to try to protect you. Now, I don't know what that tells you about your other teachers. They must just not like you.
Oh, that's for sure. So it's all good.
All right, a parameter. A parameter is some kind of numerical description of the population. So it's a number that goes along with the population. So if we said out of all the National Trail students, if National Trail is our entire population, the parameter might be something like 75 of them are seniors. That's a parameter. That's 75 out of the entire population. We're dealing with the entire population. A statistic, notice, no S. A statistic is a number that goes along with a sample. So population and parameter go together. Statistic and sample go together. Hurry up, go. You gonna do something stupid?
If he's
You
gonna
better hurry
go
up.
on the pass, just go. Alright.
Get caught, I'm gonna. So you're gonna have to be able to decide when you're looking at things, when you're looking at all these problems, you're gonna have to be able to decide, am I dealing with a parameter or am I dealing with a statistic? For this first section, it's gonna be half of one, half of the other. After we get done with chapter 1, most of the time this year, we'll be dealing with statistics. Because most everything's going to be samples. We're not going to be able to do populations a whole lot because, again, it's too hard to make sure that we get everybody. So parameter, something that describes or is used with a population, statistic, sample. Easiest way to memorize it, I had this on here. Population, parameter, both P's. Statistic, sample, both S's. They go together that way. Yeah, they're supposed to be turned in up here. Did any of the rest of you turn them in up here? I forgot to say that at the start. You can get it whenever, it's not a big deal. Oh, that's right, yeah, we did have,
We have like one big.
yeah, that was my other plan, I don't know, thinking something else. So parameter, a number that describes population, we already went over this, average age of all people in the United States. United States is our population, we're dealing with a parameter. Number that describes a sample, average age of people in a sample of 300, sample of 3 states, not 300. Just gotta be able to decide. Population population parameter or sample statistic. A recent survey of a sample of MBAs reported that the average salary for an MBA is more than $82,000. One key word in here that tells you whether we're doing a statistic or a parameter. So it tells you that we're doing a sample, so which is it, statistic or parameter? Statistic. Look for keywords, but you know, it's going to tell you a lot of times. Starting salaries for 667 MBA graduates from the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business increased 8.5% from the previous year.
Population.
We're dealing with population. What is our population this time? Just those people that graduated with an MBA from Chicago University, right? Or do we care about all the other people who graduated with MBAs from anywhere else? No, we're just dealing with that one certain population. And you gotta be careful, you know, when you look at that, we're not looking at all college graduates, we're just looking at those. Population parameter, or I'm sorry, statistic or parameter again. Recent survey of sample 450 college students reported that the average weekly income for students is $325. All right, it's a sample and it's going to be a statistic then. The average weekly income for all students is $405. It's a parameter and it's dealing with the population. Study of statistics has 2 major branches, descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Before I have you start writing anything down or anything, what's descriptive mean? Describe something. What's inferential mean? Means you're inferring. Somebody explain that to me. I don't know.
Guessing. It's like
It's like you're making some kind of guess about a certain group or something. That's what they are. So you got your statistic that's split off into 2 things. Those are the 2 things. Write down whatever you think you might need to write down off of that. What's your brother's doing now? Is he that far along?
Yeah, he went after Right Street. He did the 1 year there, and he's been doing a lot of online for IVs and he's going through it. He just does online stuff. He works at Honeycomb. He took like a break for like 6 months because once you're hired at Honeycomb for 6 months full time, they'll pay for it. So he just started back up again and go over this semester. Yeah, we just bought a house.
Thought I seen Logan the other day, but I wasn't sure. I didn't realize that he So descriptive statistics involves the organization, summarization, and display of the data, this graphs, all that stuff. You look at it and it's just describing how the data came out. Inferential. This is key to what we'll do a lot towards the end of the year. Inferential, and you guys ought to care a whole lot about inferential statistics. My other class, my transitions class, we were talking a little about this today. You get inferential statistics used on you a lot, especially with like driving a car. All right, what's the bad thing for you guys as far as driving a car? So what's that cost?
And your insurance is really expensive.
Your insurance is very, very high. And that's what they're doing there. Is they figured out all these statistics about drivers from 16 to 21, and they stuck all of you, no matter what. They've never seen you drive before, but every insurance company sticks all of you into one group, and then all your friends, you can look around the room, and if you're a good driver, there's probably 3 others in here that are crappy drivers. So you get pulled down with those other 3. And the insurance company make that inference about you, and then that causes your insurance to be extremely high.
There's someone that leaves the school in a van every day, but earlier than everybody else, because I'm always second. They always beat me every day, and they go 50 miles an hour, all the way down 40, and then 48 all the way down New Paris, Gettysburg. And it makes me so mad that you would cut everybody off, no turn signal, just to do 50 down 40, then 48 and then 55. It's stupid.
Maybe that was their whole purpose, was just to make
They
you
do
mad.
it every single day. I can't pass anybody anymore.
All right, descriptive statistics, tables, charts. We're going to be doing a lot with this. One thing I will say. Does everybody see this? What kind of graph is that? A bar graph. Absolutely not. Don't think it is. All right?
Statistics graph.
No,
Population graph.
it's not a bar graph, and we're going to learn later what it actually is. You'll see these in the newspaper, on the internet, not in the newspaper so much anymore, but on the internet, and they'll draw them just like that because they're idiots. That is not a bar graph, all right? And we're going to talk about what the difference between a bar graph and what this graph is when we get to that, and you'll have to make sure you know the difference. You don't know. Inferential statistics. Inferential statistics, we figured out something about this group. Maybe we figured out that 1/3 of all women, or I'm sorry, 1/3 of all people wear a red dress. And then we're looking over here, and we're going to infer that on everybody. And we're going to look at everybody and say, hey, how come you guys ain't got on a red dress? 1/3 of you is supposed to have a red dress on. So that's inferential. We're making that decision about the entire population. Decide which part of the study represents descriptive branch. What conclusions can be drawn from the study using inferential statistics. A large sample of men aged 48 was studied for 18 years. For unmarried men, approximately 70% were alive at age 65. So that means what? 70% were alive at 65. What's that mean? 30% were dead. For married men, 90% were alive at 65. So what's that tell you? 10% were dead. If you listen to some of your parents, hold on a second. Just kidding, young ladies. Don't be telling everybody I said something like that.
Mr. Ebersole has something to tell us. You need to talk.
Huh?
We need a friend.
So, on this, we wanted to know what represents descriptive statistic here? What are we using to describe this data? There's a couple of things here. The percentages. So we're using those percents to describe them. Also here they gave us a graph. That's a descriptive statistic. Just using the graph. Speaking of which, that is a bar graph there. What inferences could we make from this? So married men,
Before 65.
married men live longer, right? So married men live longer is what we could decide from this. Something like that. Are there other things that we could decide from it? Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Possible inference that get married, you live longer. In a recent study, volunteers who had less than 6 hours of sleep were 4 times more likely to answer incorrectly on a science test than were participants who had at least 8 hours of sleep. Decide which is descriptive statistics and what conclusions can we draw from it. What descriptive statistic are they giving us here?
6 hours of sleep.
Like the 6 hours of sleep, 4 times
8
more
hours of
likely.
sleep.
Or where was that at?
It's the second one.
4 times more likely, 8 hours of sleep. All right. What could we infer from all this?
There's more sleep.
All right. Lots of times. Please remember this. If you do go off to college or something. My son, when he was in calculus classes and I was trying to help him either on the phone or whatever and stuff, there'd be times I'd be on the phone with him 2 or 3 hours and it'd be getting late at night. Your best bet by that point, go to bed. All right? When he was taking his final exam for Calc 2 or something, I actually drove up there the night before, or actually the weekend. He had his exam on Monday, and I stayed the weekend, and on Sunday night, I said, we're done, go to bed. You're better off to get a good night's rest, be ready to take the test in the morning, than trying to stay up and cram that little bit more, because all it's going to do is make you tired, and you won't get stuff right. So, all the stuff, statistics, that's the whole study, everything that we're going to do. It's the difference between population and a sample. What's the population? Everybody, everything. All right? What's a sample? Just a piece of it, part of it. Parameter goes with what? Describes the population somehow. Statistic, no S. Describes a sample. Descriptive statistics does what to it? Describes something. Inferential. Right, some kind of decision or something you're making about the group or whatever. Get your books out. First part of your homework is going to be 1 through 22 on page 6. We're going to do it together. I got to find my book. ready?
Yeah.
Number 1. How's the sample related to a population?
A sample is a small group or subset of the whole group.
When you write stuff in here, I'm not one of the English teachers. Don't tell them this, but I don't care if you write complete sentences and stuff. Make it as easy as possible on yourself.
A subset is a little bit.
So you learn something, right? Number 2. Why is the sample used more often than a population?
It's easy to do it with.
Good enough for me. Easier. Now, as we go throughout the year, I'm telling you, hey, just write something real short. There's going to be some things later on in the year that you're going to have to actually explain stuff out. All right? So don't get used to it. Don't say, well, you said we could do that before. Yeah, but now you can't. There's going to be things that you have to explain. What is the difference between a parameter and a statistic? Parameter goes with population. Statistic goes with what? Sam. Number 4, 2 main branches of statistics.
Differential.
If you spell something wrong, it gets marked wrong. Just kidding.
Oh my god.
Like I probably just spelled, I just said that because I probably spelled one of those 2 wrong.
I was gonna say that. It's not
Yeah, he part looks weird. But you might, I don't know.
Number 5, true and false.
false.
A statistic is a measure that describes a population characteristic. False. Number 6, true. Sample is a subset of a population. Is that true? Number 7, it is impossible for the Census Bureau to obtain all the census data about the population of the United States. Until, here soon it'll be possible, because once all of you get vaccinated and the chip's in you, and once the chip's in you, I don't know if you talk to any of these people around that are thinking that they're shooting the chip. Once they have the chip in you, then they'll be able to get all the data. That person that I talked to the other day said that same thing. Said they're tracking us.
Oh yeah.
And Shane and Bug sit there for like 2 hours a day talking about it. It's pretty crazy what they come up with.
And I think Mr. Cheney might have said that to me too, and I might have said the same thing to him. Boy, you think an awful lot of yourself. If our government has to track you, they got a whole lot to do. They need to find other things to do, because if they're tracking you, and I probably use myself, if they're tracking me, what a waste of time. I don't know why in the world would anybody want to track my life.
No, don't watch me go to the grocery store after school.
Oh, no.
Don't watch me after school. Don't watch me go home and lay on my couch and take a 2-hour nap because I'm so wore out.
Exactly. What do we do?
Number 8, inferential statistics involves using a population to draw a conclusion about a corresponding sample. How come false? All right, we're not using the entire population. If, like you guys said, if we have the entire population, do we have to make any inferences?
No.
If we have the entire population, you know everything about them. You don't have to make an inference that 70% of them is going to be this way. We know 70% of them is going to be that way. Number 9. A population is the collection of some outcomes, responses, measurements, or counts that are of interest. False. What is that? Now, something else on the true and false, which I forgot that this book does this. They don't just want you to answer true and false. They want you to rewrite the sentences
Oh, but make it correct.
and make it correct. So put in the right word and stuff. We're not going to do that. We'll talk about what that right word might be and stuff as we go through and do it, but we're not going to rewrite the whole sentence. That'd be sort of stupid. I shouldn't say it'd be sort of stupid. It'd be not worthwhile because I'm not going to read it anymore. A sample statistic will not change from sample to sample. That's false. All right, that's something you need to know is we take different samples of a certain population and we say, okay, 70% of this sample said yes. Does that mean 70% in every sample is going to say yes? No. And later on in the year, what we're going to do, we're going to take a sample here, sample here, sample here, sample here, sample here, sample here, and get all those samples, and then average those together to try to get closer to what the population would actually say, or what the population would actually do. Number 11. Exercise 11 through 20, determine whether the data set is a population or a sample. And it says explain your reasoning. We'll explain it out loud. We're not going to write it down. The height of each player on a school's basketball team, population or sample? Sample? Population? Who are we looking at? Are we comparing them to everybody else in the school? No. So what is that? Now, could the basketball team be considered a sample? Yeah, it's a sample of the students at the school. But in this case, we're using it as a population. And that's where deciding between a population and a sample sometimes gets a little difficult. Amount of energy collected from every wind turbine on a wind farm. Population again. Everybody agree with that? 13. Survey of 500 spectators from a stadium of 42,000. That's a sample. Braden, have I been in your way the whole time? Can you see? The annual salary of each pharmacist at a pharmacy.
Population.
Could that be changed if we added a little bit to that sentence? Could that end up being a sample? Yeah, it could be. 15. Cholesterol levels of 20 patients in a hospital with 100 patients.
Sample.
16. Number of televisions in each U.S. household. Does that have to be a population? We could be talking about TVs in what? Instead of just the U.S. The whole world. So we'll put population. If you put sample on that one, I don't know that I could really mark it wrong. All right, that's probably where the explaining would come in handy, because I'd probably ask you, why did you put sample? And if you said, because I thought we were using the entire world, it's okay. Does that make sense? If you said, because I guessed, and the one before it was sample, so I figured it was sample also, or whatever. Number 17. Final score of each golfer in the tournament. 18. The age of every third person entering a clothing store. 19. Political party of every U.S. president. 20. 20, soil contamination levels of 10 locations near a landfill. '21, what's our population in '21? Just registered voters?
Wait, I'm confused, sorry.
Were you confused
That,
at? Just that?
I'm not reading it. Like, why is one in a circle and mine is?
So this is like a Venn diagram. Remember Venn diagrams that look something like this sometimes, or something like that, and they show how things. This is showing you the entire population, and then you're looking at subsets.
Oh, okay, so those are like subsets.
Those are like subsets inside that population. What's the sample for this one? If you watch up here, Ebersole usually figures out the shortest possible way he could write the answer that so it makes sense. Because he loves writing so much. 22 population there.
Students who donated us.
Students at what? And what's the sample?
Students who are positive.
Add this on. Do we want to continue or you just want to work on your own? Continue. 23, 24. Twenty-three, 24, same setup, right? Population, 23. Sample.
Go up to the Samsung.
'24 population.
Homeowners and rentals.
Sample. 25 says, in exercise 25 through 34, identify the population and the sample. Survey of 1,000 U.S. adults found that 59% think buying a home is the best investment a family can make. It's population. Be careful. It's all U.S. adults, right? What's the sample? 1,000 that we actually surveyed or whatever.
Well, when it says a survey of 1,000 U.S. adults, it sounds like.
It sounds like that's all you're dealing with, right? That's where you gotta be careful, because who are we trying to get information about? Just those 1,000? No, we're trying to get information about the entire, all of U.S. adults, but we only want to deal with those 1,000 because we can't deal with everybody. $26. So, infants born in Italy. That's the population of infants born in Italy. What's the sample? 33,043 that we actually studied. Sorry, Michael, I got lazy. I didn't feel like writing all of that. $27. Let's move a little quicker without me reading. U.S. adults is the population. And what's the sample? What is it? So 1,442 adults is our sample. Population could be real simple here. One word. People. Didn't say what people, didn't say U.S. people, didn't say. So Martians aren't included in this because I don't think we consider them people. What's the sample? The 1,600. $29 is what? Registered voters. And then the sample is 800. Population on next one, students at a college. Sample. 496 students. $31 population. U.S. women. Sample. 546. $32. Vacationers. And you could put vacationers, it's probably better, vacationers from U.S. And what's our sample? 791. 33,
Best companies.
Fortune 5, or Fortune Magazine's top 100. That's our population. Well, hold on.
I think it's the 100.
Magazine mails questionnaires to each company in the top 100 best companies.
The C responses would be that.
Okay, so all of them that they mailed them to all the companies, right? Sorry, I just had to finish reading it and read the whole sentence. And then what's our sample? The 85 that actually responded. At the end of the day, a quality control inspector selects 20 light bulbs from that day's production and tests them. What's our population?
Do all the like
All light bulbs produced. And what's the sample? 28 that they picked. That's something, that problem right there, you're gonna see later on, way back in the book, when Alex gets out and he has his own company and he's got to do quality control on it. So he's producing this product. Can Alex just go out there and take every product off the assembly line and test it and then put it back on, take every one of them? No, what they do is they take a certain amount of them, test them, something's screwing up, then they go back and fix it. Does that mean every product that you send out is going to be spectacular? No, sometimes things slip through. Not Alex's company though. In exercise 3542, determine whether the numerical value is a parameter or a statistic. Again, we're not going to explain, just you can just write parameter or statistic. Number 35, the average annual salary for 35 of a company's 1,200 accountants is $68,000. Statistic. $36, in a survey of a sample, that should give you a hint right there, of high school students, 43% said that their mothers had taught them the most about managing money. Statistic. I think I'm done. You guys can handle the rest, can you? Got like, what, 12, 13 more, something like that? Sure. 8.
We're at 36.
That brings us to the point, make sure you get a calculator so that Lily can subtract.
Yeah.
Make sure you get a calculator, TI 83 or 84. I know you don't need it for the stuff that we're doing right now. No, later on, most definitely. Anybody have any better ideas about these desks? How I could arrange them in this room? Or is this all right?
Here's the geometry teacher.
Shapes.
I want them all somewhere else in somebody else's room.
What happened the last time?
What, the other tables? The tables were in here just because we were waiting on these to get delivered. So now we have them, and it bothers me because I would have liked to took a couple of days and decided how I actually wanted them before I actually have students in here. Shannon, while you're up, will you do me a favor? Will you go up there and grab that pen and stop the recording before I forget and somebody says something that they shouldn't say, and
Right, the circle or
the little thing in the middle.